The inspection ships arrived at dawn, their hulls dark against Earth's blue sky. Captain stood on the observation deck of the orbital station and watched them approach. His hands gripped the railing so hard his knuckles turned white. "They're here for the Defender," said Lieutenant Menu, standing beside him. The young officer's voice shook slightly. Nodded but said nothing. The Defender was his ship. He had commanded her for 3 years, fought 12 battles, and brought his crew home every single time. Now, alien inspectors would tear her apart, piece by piece. The war had lasted only 6 months. The Galactic Coalition had ships that moved faster, weapons that hit harder, and shields that Earth's missiles could not break. Humanity fought with everything it had, but everything was not enough. 3 billion people died. 50 colonies were destroyed. Earth's fleet was reduced to scattered survivors hiding in the outer system. Then came the surrender. The Treaty of Terra was signed in Geneva on a cold November morning. Had watched the ceremony on a screen from his hospital bed, recovering from wounds he received in the Battle of Mars. He watched Earth's leaders bow their heads and sign away humanity's right to defend itself. The treaty was simple. No military vessels over 500 tons. No directed energy weapons. No missiles with yields above conventional explosives. Earth could keep small patrol craft for policing its own space, but nothing that could threaten the coalition. Nothing that could fight back. "It's for the best," the coalition ambassador had said. The creature looked like a mantis made of metal, towering 3 meters tall. Its voice came through a translator, cold and mechanical. "Humanity will learn to be peaceful. You will trade, mine asteroids, build stations. You will prosper under coalition protection. You simply will not make war." Protection, the word made sick. The inspection ships docked with the station. Forced himself to walk to the airlock to greet the aliens who had come to dismantle his ship. The lead inspector was one of the mantis creatures. It looked at with eyes like black mirrors. "Captain," it said, "you will provide full access to all military vessels in this station." "Of course," replied. His voice was steady. He had practiced keeping his voice steady. They walked through the station's corridors to the docking bay where the destroyer Defender waited. She was a beautiful ship, sleek and powerful, bristling with weapons that could crack an asteroid in half or punch through enemy armor. Had loved this ship. The inspectors swarmed over her like insects. They cut away her missile tubes with plasma torches. They removed her point defense systems, her sensor arrays. Everything that made her a warship they took, stood and watched. His crew stood with him, silent and angry. "What will you do with the parts?" asked Menu. "Melt them down," one of the inspectors said. "Recycle them, perhaps make farming equipment." Farming equipment, from weapons that could split moons. The process took 3 days. When it was finished, the Defender was just an empty hull with engines. She could fly, but she could not fight. She could not protect anyone. "You may keep this vessel for cargo transport," the lead inspector told, "or we can scrap it entirely. Your choice." Chose to keep it. He didn't know why. Maybe because completely destroying her felt like killing something already dead. After the inspectors left, received new orders. He was reassigned to civilian duty. Many officers were. The military was being disbanded, reformed into something smaller and harmless. Would captain a transport ship, moving supplies between Earth and the Moon. It was important work, they told him. Necessary work. It felt like a prison sentence. Received her reassignment orders the same week. She had been the head engineer at the Neptune military shipyards, designing the next generation of Earth's warships. Ships that would never be built now. The treaty made sure of that. Her new assignment was with Industrial Corporation, a civilian company that built mining vessels and cargo haulers. She reported to their headquarters in Seoul on a Monday morning, carrying a single bag of belongings. The CEO met her personally. His name was Nam, a short man with gray hair and sharp eyes. "I know this isn't what you wanted," he said, gesturing for her to sit. "You're a weapons designer, and now I'm asking you to design mining ships." "Yes, sir," said. What else could she say? Leaned back in his chair. "The coalition thinks they've beaten us. They think by taking away our warships they've made us harmless." He paused. "Do you believe that, engineer?" Looked at him carefully. "I'm not sure what you're asking, sir." "I'm asking if you think humanity will stay harmless forever. I'm asking if you think we'll accept this treaty for the next 1,000 years." Eyes were intense. "I'm asking if you're still loyal to Earth." "I am," said immediately. "Always." "Good," smiled slightly. "Then I have a real project for you. We're going to build mining ships, yes. Big ones. Ships that can crack asteroids, move massive amounts of ore, operate in dangerous environments. Ships that need heavy armor to survive radiation. Ships that need powerful engines to push through debris fields." Began to understand. Ships that need equipment that looks like other things. Exactly. Pulled up a hologram between them. It showed a massive vessel, blocky and industrial. "The coalition is stupid. They think in military terms. They banned warships, so they think we can't fight. But they never said we couldn't build tools, very powerful tools." Studied the hologram. She saw the massive cargo bays that could be rapidly converted. She saw the ore accelerators that were really. She saw the asteroid processing torches that were fusion weapons. She saw the heavy armor plating disguised as radiation shielding. She saw a warship wearing the skin of a mining barge. "They'll inspect everything," said. "They'll check every design. Then we'll make sure everything is technically legal," replied. "We'll follow every rule. We'll make them approve ships that will one day blow their fleets out of space." For the first time since the treaty was signed, smiled. "When do I start?" "Now." Across human space, others were making the same realization. In retirement homes, old admirals began making quiet phone calls. In corporate boardrooms, CEOs started special projects with hidden budgets. In engineering schools, the students were recruited for civilian work that looked very military. The coalition had made a mistake. They had defeated humanity's military, but they hadn't defeated humanity's spirit. They had taken away warships, but they hadn't taken away human creativity, human stubbornness, human rage. Admiral sat in her apartment in Tokyo, looking at star charts on her computer screen. She was 70 years old, forced into retirement by the treaty. But her mind was still sharp, and her anger still burned. She opened a secure communication channel. Faces appeared on her screen. Ship captains, engineers, corporate executives, politicians, all people she trusted, all people who refused to accept defeat. "They think it's over," said. "They think they've won." "Haven't they?" asked one of the captains. "No," replied. "They've won a battle, but this war isn't over. It's just changing form. We can't build warships. Fine, we'll build something else. Something they won't see coming until it's too late." "What are you proposing?" asked another voice. "Patience," said. "Planning. And when the time comes, vengeance. They wanted us to be peaceful miners and traders. We'll be the most dangerous miners and traders the galaxy has ever seen." The meeting lasted 3 hours. When it ended, humanity had a new strategy. Not a military strategy, because humanity had no military. A survival strategy. A revenge strategy. A strategy that would one day make the coalition regret they hadn't destroyed Earth completely when they had the chance. piloted his transport ship through Earth's orbital traffic, carrying supplies to the lunar colonies. Boring work, safe work. But as he flew, he thought about new mining ship designs. He thought about admirals' secret meetings. He thought about the future. The Coalition had prohibited humanity from building warships. They were going to regret being so specific. 5 years passed. Earth rebuilt. Cities rose from ruins. Orbital stations expanded. The economy grew stronger than before the war. Humanity traded with dozens of alien species, mined asteroids, built habitats in the outer system. To any observer, Earth had accepted its place in the galaxy. The Coalition was pleased. Humanity had learned its lesson. But beneath the surface, something else was growing. Stood in the design center of Industrial, staring at the hologram floating before her. The ship was massive, 500 meters long and 50,000 tons. It looked nothing like the sleek warships she used to design. This vessel was blocky, utilitarian, covered in industrial equipment and cargo pods. It was also the most dangerous ship humanity had ever created. "The Coalition inspectors arrive tomorrow," said Bora Lee, assistant engineer. Bora was young, barely 25, but brilliant. She had designed the magnetic accelerator system. "Are we ready?" "We're ready," said. "Everything is legal. Everything follows the treaty. On paper, this is just a mining vessel." "On paper," Bora repeated with a small smile. The ship was called the Hammer-class asteroid processor. The name was deliberately boring. Coalition inspectors had already approved 12 similar designs from other human companies. They saw the pattern emerging: humanity building bigger and bigger industrial ships, but they weren't concerned. Mining was peaceful. Trade was peaceful. The Coalition didn't understand that humanity had stopped thinking about war the traditional way. The next morning, 3 Coalition inspectors arrived. They were escorted through the facility by Nam himself. The CEO wore his most welcoming smile. He said, though only one of the aliens was remotely humanoid, "Welcome to Industrial. We're very excited to show you our new vessel design." The lead inspector was a crystalline creature that communicated through light pulses, translated by a device on its chest. "We will examine all specifications. The treaty is clear. No military vessels." "Of course," agreed. "This is purely civilian, an asteroid processor designed for deep space mining operations." They walked through the construction bay where the first Hammer-class ship was being assembled. It was only half finished, its skeleton exposed, but already its size was impressive. "Large," observed one inspector, "a floating jellyfish-like being." "It needs to be," explained. She had prepared this presentation carefully. Asteroid mining in the outer system requires ships that can operate independently for months. We need extensive cargo capacity for ore storage, powerful engines to move between targets, and heavy shielding against radiation. She pulled up technical displays. "These are the magnetic accelerators. They're used to launch containers of processed ore back to collection stations. Much more efficient than having the ship carry everything." The lead inspector studied the specifications. The accelerators could launch a 10-ton container at significant fractions of light speed, fast enough to cross the system in days rather than weeks. Fast enough to punch through any ship's hull like it was paper. But the inspector saw only an efficient mining tool. It approved the design with a pulse of green light. "And these?" asked the jellyfish inspector, pointing to massive cylindrical devices mounted along the ship's sides. "Fusion torches," said smoothly. "For breaking apart asteroids too large to process whole. We superheat and slice them into manageable pieces. much faster than conventional methods. The torches could melt through 3 meters of armor plating in seconds. They had been designed to do exactly that. But again, the inspectors saw only mining equipment. They moved on. Interesting cargo bay configuration, the third inspector noted. It was a reptilian creature with too many eyes. Modular design, explained. The bays can be reconfigured based on mission needs. Sometimes we're hauling ore, sometimes equipment, sometimes supplies for station construction. Flexibility is important. The bays could also be rapidly converted to house missile launchers, but that wasn't mentioned. The mounting points existed, hidden in the structural framework. The conversion could happen in under an hour. The inspection lasted 6 hours. The coalition team examined everything: engines, life support, communication systems, the heavy armor plating that had cleverly justified as necessary protection against micrometeorites and radiation. When they finished, all 3 inspectors agreed. The Hammer class was approved for construction. It met all treaty requirements. It was civilian, unarmed, and legal. It was perfect. "We'll begin full production next month," told them at the door. "We expect to build 50 vessels in the first year alone. The asteroid belt is full of untapped resources." After the inspectors left and stood in the empty conference room, 50 ships, said quietly, 50 ships that can fight. "Other companies are building their own variants," replied. "Similar designs, slightly different configurations. Within 2 years, Earth will have over 200 of these vessels, all perfectly legal." "Will it be enough?" "It will have to be." Received the message on a Tuesday evening. He had spent the day moving cargo between Earth and the Moon, the same boring route he had flown 1,000 times. But the message made his heart race. It was from Admiral, just 3 words: "Time to fish." That was the code phrase. Everything they had planned, everything they had built in secret, was finally ready. Went to his ship's secure computer and entered a long password. A hidden file opened. Inside were specifications for the Hammer-class mining vessel, along with tactical analysis and crew requirements. The message was clear: was being recalled to real duty. 2 weeks later, he stood on the bridge of the HMIV Indomitable, the first completed Hammer-class ship. HMIV stood for Human Merchant Industrial Vessel. The classification made want to laugh. This ship was about as civilian as a loaded gun. "Captain on the bridge," announced Menu. The young lieutenant had followed to civilian service and now served as his first officer. Around them, 40 crew members worked at their stations. All of them were former military. All of them understood what this ship really was. "Status?" asked. "All systems operational," replied Sara Jin from the tactical station. Sara was a thin woman with sharp features, a former intelligence officer. She knew every capability of this vessel. Magnetic accelerators ready, fusion torches at standby, missile conversion equipment stored and secured. "Excellent," settled into the captain's chair. It felt right. Better than the transport ship he had been flying. "Take us out," filed flight plan. "Asteroid belt mining survey," Menu said. 3 months duration. We're one of 12 ships heading out this week. 12 ships, and more launching every month. Humanity's secret fleet hiding in plain sight. The Indomitable detached from the station and fired its engines. The acceleration was smooth and powerful. This ship had military-grade engines, though the paperwork called them high-efficiency industrial drives. As they left Earth orbit, looked at the planet below. 5 years ago, it had been burning, under attack, watching its fleets die. Now it looked peaceful and prosperous. The coalition thought humanity was beaten. They had no idea what was coming. In the asteroid belt, the Hammer-class ships began their mining operations. They practiced formations, tested their weapons systems under the guise of ore processing, and trained their crews. The magnetic accelerators launched test containers at increasingly higher velocities. The fusion torches carved practice patterns in empty asteroids. Everything was recorded as standard mining activity. Park, a physicist working for Industrial, made a breakthrough in fusion drive efficiency. Her new design increased power output by 30% while reducing fuel consumption. It was immediately added to all new ship construction. Why so much power? A coalition trade official asked during a routine inspection. Mining vessels don't need to move that fast. Competition, explained cheerfully. The company that gets to an asteroid first gets the best ore. Speed is profit. The official accepted this. Capitalism was something the coalition understood. What they didn't understand was that the increased power also meant these ships could now outrun most coalition military vessels. One, an engineer specializing in automation, developed what he called autonomous mining drones. Small, intelligent machines that could separate valuable ore from waste rock. They were incredibly efficient, and dozens of mining companies began using them. They were also easily into guided missiles. Hand-designed new cargo pods with advanced propulsion systems. For transporting high-value materials quickly and safely, he explained in trade journals. The pods could also be turned into boarding craft or used to ram enemy ships. Every innovation had two purposes. Every system had a secret function. Humanity was building a military fleet while the galaxy watched and saw only peaceful commerce. Admiral coordinated everything from her apartment in Tokyo. Her network had grown to include hundreds of people: ship captains, corporate executives, government officials, engineers, scientists. They communicated through secure channels, using codes embedded in business transactions and shipping manifests. She maintained detailed records of every ship, every weapon system, every trained crew member. When the time came, she would know exactly what forces humanity could deploy. "Are we ready for war?" her aide asked during one late-night meeting. "No," said honestly. "The coalition still has thousands of military ships. We have 200 mining barges." "Then why are we doing this?" "Because when war comes, and it will come, we won't be helpless. We'll have ships that can fight, ships they won't expect, ships that don't follow their rules," smiled grimly. "They forced us to think differently. That might be their biggest mistake." The months passed. More Hammer-class ships launched. Other designs appeared. The Titan-class heavy processors, the Swift-class ore haulers with enhanced engines, the Fortress-class mobile refineries with incredibly thick armor. All civilian, all legal, all deadly. And his crew practiced constantly. They learned to coordinate with other ships, to move in formation while maintaining the appearance of random mining patterns. They learned to fire the magnetic accelerators with precision, to wield the fusion torches like swords, to convert their ship from mining vessel to warship in under 30 minutes. They were ready. The galaxy just didn't know it yet. On Earth, in corporate boardrooms and government offices, people watched and waited. They had turned their limitation into an advantage. The coalition had prohibited warships, so humanity had built something else, something unexpected, something worse. 10 years after the treaty, humanity had over 200 industrial vessels working throughout the solar system. The coalition had grown comfortable with Earth's compliance. Humanity traded, mined, and built. They caused no trouble. They seemed content. That illusion shattered on a cold morning in October. The mining station at asteroid 433 Eros was home to 300 workers. They extracted rare metals from the ancient rock and sent them back to Earth. It was hard, dangerous work, but profitable. The station had been operating for 6 years without incident, until the Coalition patrol arrived. Commander of the Coalition 4th Fleet saw the human mining operation and felt contempt. His ship, the Righteous Fury, was a proper warship, fast, armed, and powerful. The human ships near Eros were just ugly industrial barges. "What are they doing in this sector?" asked his weapons officer. "Mining, apparently," replied. His species, they were warriors. They had little patience for merchants and miners. "This asteroid is in disputed territory. Earth has no claim here." "Should we warn them?" "No." His mandibles clicked together, his species' version of a smile. "We'll seize their equipment as penalty for illegal operation. The treaty says they must accept Coalition authority." The Righteous Fury approached Eros with 3 support ships. 4 Coalition vessels against half a dozen human mining barges. It would be simple. Opened a communication channel. "Human vessels, this is Coalition Commander. You are operating illegally in disputed space. Power down your engines and prepare to be boarded. Resist and you will be destroyed." On the mining station, 300 workers watched in horror. They had no weapons, no defenses. They sent out distress calls, not expecting anyone to help. But someone did. The HMIV Indomitable was 3 hours away, conducting mining surveys deeper in the belt. Captain received the distress signal and made his decision in seconds. "All hands battle stations," he announced. "This is not a drill. We're going to engage Coalition forces." His crew moved with practiced efficiency. Minu began calculating firing solutions. Sara activated weapon systems hidden in the ship's structure. Throughout the vessel, cargo bays opened and missile launchers rose into position. "Captain," Minu said quietly, "if we do this, there's no going back. The treaty." "The treaty doesn't mean anything if the Coalition can threaten our people whenever they want," replied. He opened a channel to the other mining ships in the area. "All vessels, this is Indomitable. We have a situation at Eros. If you want to run, no one will blame you, but if you want to fight, form up on me." There was a pause. Then, one by one, 5 other ships acknowledged. Their transponders changed from green civilian markers to amber combat status. 6 ships against 4, Sara noted. "We have the numbers." "We also have surprise," said. "They think we're harmless. Let's show them otherwise. Maximum acceleration, weapons free." The Indomitable surged forward, its military-grade engines pushing it to speeds no mining ship should reach. The other 5 vessels followed, racing through the asteroid field toward Eros. Commander watched them come and laughed. "Stupid humans. They're going to fight with mining equipment, target the lead ship. 1 shot should be enough." But before the Righteous Fury could fire, gave his order. "Commence standard mining operations." It was the code phrase they had practiced for years. The Indomitable's magnetic accelerators, designed to launch ore containers across the system, swiveled and locked onto targets. Inside the ship, robotic systems loaded specially prepared containers. Each one was a solid block of iron and nickel, 10 tons of mass designed to survive high acceleration. "Fire," said calmly. The accelerators thrummed with power. In 3 seconds, they launched 100 containers at 0.3 light speed. 100 projectiles moving so fast they covered the distance to the Coalition ships in heartbeats. Commander had time to see them coming. He had no time to react. The first container hit the Righteous Fury's shields and punched through like they weren't there. The second hit the hull and vaporized a 50-meter section. The third, fourth, and fifth impacts broke the ship's spine. The Righteous Fury exploded in a burst of white light. The three support ships tried to scatter. They were too slow. The other human vessels had fired as well. Hundreds of projectiles filled space, each one carrying enough kinetic energy to devastate whatever it hit. Two coalition ships simply ceased to exist, torn apart by impacts they never saw coming. The third took a dozen hits and tumbled away, dead in space. The entire engagement lasted 47 seconds. On the mining station, workers stared at their monitors in shocked silence. Around Eros, debris from 4 coalition warships drifted in expanding clouds. "Did that just happen?" someone whispered. Opened a channel to the station. "This is Captain of the Indomitable. You're safe now. We'll maintain position until you can evacuate if you choose." "Captain," the station director stammered, You destroyed coalition warships with mining equipment." "Yes," said simply, "we did, and we'll do it again if they threaten our people." He closed the channel and looked at his crew. They were staring at their screens, at the impossible victory they had just achieved. Minu was shaking slightly. Sara had tears on her cheeks. "We did it," Minu breathed. "We actually did it." "Record everything," ordered. "Every sensor reading, every camera angle. The galaxy needs to see this." Within hours, the recordings spread across human space. Within days, they reached every species in the coalition. The images were clear and undeniable. Human mining vessels had destroyed 4 military warships in less than a minute. The galaxy watched in stunned disbelief. In the Coalition Council chambers, emergency sessions began immediately. The holographic recording played on endless repeat. Counselors from 100 species watched the human ships fire what should have been harmless mining equipment with devastating effect. "How is this possible?" demanded a counselor from the collective. "We inspected their vessels. We approved the designs. Those are civilian ships." "Civilian ships with military weapons," another replied. "No," said a military analyst. "Not military weapons. Mining tools, ore accelerators, asteroid processing torches, all perfectly legal under the treaty. They just used them in ways we never imagined." "They tricked us," someone said angrily. "They followed our rules," corrected another. "We prohibited warships. We said nothing about industrial vessels. The treaty was very specific." On Earth, Admiral held an emergency meeting with government leaders. The secret was out. Humanity's hidden fleet was no longer hidden. "The coalition will respond," the Secretary General said. "They'll see this as a treaty violation." "Let them," replied. "We violated nothing. Every vessel is civilian, every weapon is industrial equipment. They approved the designs themselves. If they want to punish us for being creative, let them try. They have thousands of warships. And we have 200 industrial vessels that just prove they can kill warships." Leaned forward. "For 10 years we've prepared for this. We knew it would come eventually. The coalition likes to bully species they think are weak. They just learned we're not weak anymore." Back at Eros, prepared his ship for what came next. He knew the coalition would respond. He knew this battle was just the beginning. But he also knew something else. Humanity had spent 10 years turning mining equipment into weapons, converting their limitation into an advantage. The coalition thought in terms of conventional warfare, of warships and standard tactics. Humanity had stopped thinking that way. They had learned to fight like engineers and miners, using tools and creativity instead of just guns and missiles. "Captain," Sora reported, "we're receiving messages from across human space. Other mining vessels are declaring combat readiness. They're all activating their hidden systems." "How many?" asked. "All of them, sir. Every Hammer class, every Titan, every Swift class and Fortress class. Over 200 ships are ready to fight." Smiled grimly. The Coalition had forced humanity to innovate. They had prohibited warships and thought that would keep Earth helpless. Instead, they had pushed humanity to build something unprecedented. A fleet that wasn't a fleet, weapons that weren't weapons, warriors who weren't soldiers, mining vessels that could kill. "Signal to all ships," ordered. "Maintain mining operations but stay alert. If the Coalition wants another fight, we'll give them one they'll never forget." On Earth, in corporate offices and government buildings, in engineering schools and shipyards, humanity prepared for war. Not the war they had fought before, the conventional conflict they had lost. A new kind of war, fought with new kinds of ships, using tactics the galaxy had never seen. The Coalition had made a critical error. They had defeated Earth's military but left Earth's industry and creativity intact. They had taken away humanity's warships but forced humanity to become more dangerous, not less. In space stations across the system, human crews celebrated their victory at Eros. They had proven something important. The treaty might prohibit warships, but it couldn't stop humanity from fighting. It couldn't stop humanity from winning. The recordings of the battle played on every screen. Humanity watched their mining vessels destroy Coalition warships and felt hope for the first time in 10 years. They weren't helpless. They weren't defeated. They were just getting started. Commander's last transmission, sent automatically when his ship died, reached Coalition headquarters. His final words were preserved in the computer logs. "What are these ships? They're not warships. They're not military. What did the humans build?" The answer was spreading across the galaxy, transmitted with every viewing of the battle recordings, understood by anyone who watched closely. The humans had built something worse than warships. They had built tools of war disguised as tools of peace. They had built weapons the treaty couldn't restrict because, technically, legally, they weren't weapons at all. They were just mining equipment, used very, very creatively. The Coalition's response came 30 days after the battle at Eros. It came in the form of 300 warships jumping into the solar system, weapons armed and shields raised. The largest military fleet ever assembled by the Coalition, all aimed at Earth. Their message was simple: surrender immediately or be destroyed. Admiral stood in the emergency command center deep beneath Sol, watching the tactical displays. 300 ships. Earth's fleet numbered 212 industrial vessels. The odds were against them. But odds had never stopped humanity before. "All ships are responding," reported her aide, Song, was young but capable, a former negotiator who had joined staff. "We have full deployment across the system. Captains are awaiting orders." "Tell them to proceed with Operation Hammer," said calmly, "and pray this works." In space, Captain received the order and felt his heart race. This was it. Everything they had built, everything they had planned would be tested now. "All hands, this is the captain," he announced across the Indomitable. "Coalition forces have entered the system. We are now at war. Remember your training. Remember why we fight. We are miners and engineers, but today we're also warriors. Show them what humanity can do." The Coalition fleet advanced toward Earth in a standard military formation. Commodore, a veteran officer from the species, commanded the attack. He had fought in 30 campaigns across the galaxy. He expected this to be simple. Humans had mining ships. He had warships. Superior weapons, superior shields, superior everything. The battle at Eros had been a fluke, a surprise. That wouldn't happen again. Sensors detect human vessels throughout the asteroid belt, his tactical officer reported. They're not running. Foolish, said. Target the largest concentrations. We'll destroy them in groups. But as the coalition fleet moved deeper into the system, the humans did something unexpected. They scattered. The industrial vessels broke into small groups and moved into the densest parts of the asteroid field. They hid behind rocks the size of mountains, used the spinning debris as cover, and made themselves nearly impossible to target. They're running after all, second officer said. No, replied slowly. They're preparing an ambush, be alert. He was right. The first coalition squadron that entered the main asteroid belt was hit from 3 directions at once. Human ships appeared from behind asteroids, fired their magnetic accelerators, and disappeared again before return fire could hit them. 20 coalition ships took damage in the first 30 seconds. Evasive action, ordered, deploy point defense. But the point defense systems designed to stop missiles and energy weapons were useless against solid projectiles moving at relativistic speeds. The ore containers the humans fired were too fast, too dense, too simple. They couldn't be intercepted. Another volley hit the squadron. 5 ships exploded. The rest retreated, firing blindly. This is not how battles are fought, shouted in frustration. They're using guerrilla tactics. They're miners, his tactical officer said quietly. They know this terrain, every asteroid, every rock. They've been working here for years. Smiled as he watched another coalition ship take damage. The Indomitable was hidden behind Asteroid Palace, one of the largest bodies in the belt. His crew had practiced this exact scenario dozens of times. Reload, he ordered. Target the ship at grid reference 79. Fire on my mark. The accelerators launched another spread. 10 containers, each one aimed with precision. 8 hits. The coalition ship's shields collapsed and its hull broke apart. Moving to position Beta, Minu reported. The Indomitable's engines fired, pushing them behind another asteroid. The coalition returned fire, hit empty space where they had been seconds before. This was the advantage humanity had discovered. Coalition warships were designed for open space battles, fleet actions where ships lined up and traded fire. The asteroids made that impossible. The battlefield was 3-dimensional chaos, with millions of rocks providing cover. And humanity knew how to work in chaos. Captain, the Titan-class vessels are moving into position, Sara reported. They're ready for Phase 2. Execute, ordered. Deeper in the belt, 12 Titan-class ships emerged from hiding. These were the heaviest vessels in humanity's fleet, massive and slow, covered in armor plating. They looked like fortresses. They were fortresses. Coalition ships targeted them immediately, pouring fire into the Titans. Energy beams scorched their hulls. Missiles exploded against their armor, but the Titans kept coming, absorbing damage that would have destroyed ordinary vessels. All forward torches, maximum power, ordered Captain Jinnah from the bridge of the Titan-class vessel Anvil. Jinnah was a former medic who had learned to command through necessity. She was calm under fire. The fusion torches activated. Designed to melt asteroids, they now focused on coalition ships. White-hot beams cut through space, slicing into enemy hulls. Shields couldn't stop them. The torches weren't energy weapons in the traditional sense. They were industrial tools operating at maximum output. Two coalition ships were cut in half. A third lost its engines and tumbled away. "They're getting through our shields," the coalition tactical officer reported to Commodore. "The fusion torches, they're too hot, too focused. Our shields aren't designed to stop them." "Then increase power to shields." "It's not enough. These aren't weapons, they're tools meant to break apart asteroids. They generate temperatures higher than our defensive systems can handle." Felt cold fear. His ships were built to fight other warships, other military vessels using standard weapons. These human ships didn't follow any standard. They used mining equipment, industrial tools, things no military planner had ever considered threats. The coalition was losing. "All ships reform into defensive clusters," ordered. "Cover each other. We'll advance as a unified force." But clustering made them better targets. The human ships fired from multiple angles, their accelerators launching projectiles that hit with devastating force. When coalition ships concentrated their fire to hit a human vessel, three more appeared from different directions. Engineer Bora Lee, working from a command ship near Mars, coordinated the swarm attacks. She had designed the autonomous mining drones that now filled space by the thousands. Each drone was small, fast, and loaded with explosives. "Release the swarm," she ordered. The drones launched from Swift-class vessels throughout the belt. They looked like clouds of metal insects, moving in coordinated patterns. Coalition point defense systems tried to stop them, but there were too many, moving too fast, following too many different approach vectors. The drones reached their targets and detonated. Individually, each explosion was small, but hundreds hitting a single ship in seconds was devastating. Hulls cracked, systems failed, ships went dark. "What are those things?" demanded. "Mining drones," his science officer reported, checking the database. "Used for ore separation and transport, perfectly legal civilian equipment." "They're tearing my ships apart." "Yes, sir, they are." The battle raged for 3 days. The coalition had superior technology and military training, but humanity had superior knowledge of the terrain and unlimited creativity. Every limitation the treaty had imposed became an advantage. Mining ships that looked defenseless were actually deadly. Industrial tools became precision weapons. The cargo haulers released modified drones that behaved like guided missiles. Even the small patrol craft Earth was allowed had been modified with hidden weapon systems. Captain Juan commanded a Fortress-class mobile refinery, a ship designed to process ore on site. His vessel was so heavily armored it could survive almost anything. He used it as a shield, positioning his ship to protect smaller human vessels while they attacked. "We're taking heavy fire," his engineer reported. "Hull integrity at 60%. "Keep the forward armor pointed at them," Juan ordered. "We can take it." And they did. The fortress vessels absorbed enormous punishment, allowing the faster ships to maneuver and strike. It was a tactic no military doctrine covered, because military vessels weren't supposed to be this durable. But ships designed to survive asteroid impacts and radiation storms could survive weapons fire too. Han's cargo pods proved their worth as boarding craft. Modified with thrusters and life support, they carried small teams of humans directly to damaged coalition ships. The teams didn't try to capture the vessels, they just sabotaged critical systems and it was chaos, it was unconventional, it was working. By the end of day 3, Commodore had lost 80 ships, 80 out of 300. The humans had lost 30 vessels, but their remaining ships were still fighting, still striking from unexpected angles. "We're losing this battle," his second officer said quietly. "Couldn't accept it. They're civilians, mining ships. How can we lose to mining ships?" "Because they're not fighting like civilians," came the reply. "They're fighting like miners who learned how to kill." On the fourth day made his decision. "Signal the fleet. We're withdrawing to the outer system. We'll regroup and try a different approach." But as the coalition forces began to retreat, the human ships pursued. Not to destroy them, just to harry them, to make sure they left and didn't come back soon. Watched the coalition fleet withdraw and felt exhaustion wash over him. His crew was beyond tired, operating on adrenaline and determination. The Indomitable was damaged by weapons fire but still functional. "Did we win?" Minu asked, his voice hoarse. "We survived," replied. "That's victory enough." Admiral received the reports from every sector. 30 ships lost, but the coalition had been driven back. Earth was safe. The second war, like the first, was over. But this time, humanity had won. She opened a channel to all human vessels. "This is Admiral to all ships. You have done the impossible. You have defended Earth with mining equipment and civilian vessels. You have proven that humanity cannot be conquered, cannot be controlled, and will not accept oppression. Return home. You've earned your rest." Across the system, crews celebrated. They had fought a military fleet with industrial ships and won. It seemed impossible, but the evidence floated around them in the form of coalition debris. On Earth, billions watched the recordings of the battle. They saw their mining ships destroy military vessels, saw their industrial fleet defend the planet. Pride swelled in human hearts. The galaxy watched too, and the galaxy learned a lesson. Humanity was dangerous, not because of the ships they built, but because of how they thought. They didn't follow the rules of war. They created new rules. The coalition had prohibited warships. Humanity had built something worse. And now everyone knew it. 2 years after the Second War, the galaxy looked very different. The coalition still existed, but it was weaker, divided, uncertain. Species that had remained silent under coalition rule now spoke openly. Some joined humanity's new alliance. Others simply declared independence. Earth had become a power the galaxy could not ignore. Admiral stood on the observation deck of the orbital station above Earth, the same station where he had watched his ship being dismantled 12 years ago. Today, he was watching something else, the construction of the largest civilian fleet in galactic history. "Impressive, isn't it?" said a voice behind him. Turned to see engineer. She looked older now, tired but satisfied. She had just returned from a design conference with 3 alien species who wanted to learn Earth's methods. "How many ships are we building now?" asked. 400 new vessels this year," replied. "And we're helping 6 other species build their own versions. The demand is incredible. Everyone wants ships that can fight without being called warships." Smiled. "We changed the galaxy's thinking about warfare." "We had to," said. "The coalition gave us no choice. Adapt or die." They stood in comfortable silence, watching workers assemble the skeleton of a new Titan-class vessel. Around them, the station buzzed with activity. Earth's orbital infrastructure had tripled in size. Shipyards, factories, research stations, all working together. "Have you heard about the treaty negotiations?" asked. "Some," admitted. "The coalition wants to renegotiate. They want us to agree to new restrictions. Limits on ship sizes, engine power, weapon capabilities. They learned their lesson about being too specific, so now they're trying to be very broad." "What's our position?" "Simple," said. "No, We'll never accept limits on our ability to defend ourselves again. Never. The negotiations were happening on a neutral station in the system. Ambassador Song represented humanity. She had been chosen carefully, a young diplomat with a sharp mind and iron will. The coalition sent their best negotiators. 5 species, dozens of officials, all trying to find a way to limit Earth's growing power without starting another war. "You must understand our position," said the lead coalition negotiator, a floating being made of energy. "Your vessels are too powerful. They destabilize the balance of power." "Our vessels are civilian ships," replied calmly. "Mining equipment, cargo haulers, industrial processors. The treaty you forced on us said nothing about restricting such vessels." "They are warships in disguise." "No," corrected. "They are tools that can be used as weapons. There's a difference. Your military vessels are built only for war. Our ships serve multiple purposes. That makes them civilian by definition." "This is word games," another negotiator complained. "This is law," said firmly. "You wrote the treaty. We followed it. If the treaty didn't say what you meant, that's your mistake, not ours." The negotiations went in circles. The coalition wanted control. Humanity refused to give it. Finally, after weeks of discussion, a new agreement was reached. The Treaty of Terra would be officially. Earth would be recognized as a sovereign military power with the right to build any vessels it wanted. In exchange, humanity agreed to join a new galactic council where all species had equal votes. No more coalition dominance, no more forced treaties, a new system based on equality. Some coalition species refused to accept this. They left the negotiations and returned home angry and bitter. But others, especially smaller species that had always been under coalition control, saw an opportunity. They approached Earth with trade agreements and military alliances. The Free Trade Alliance was born 6 months later. 12 species joined humanity in an economic and defensive partnership. They shared technology, built ships together, and promised mutual protection. "It's not the galaxy I expected," Admiral said during a council meeting on Earth. She was 82 now, her hair completely white, but her mind was still sharp. "When we lost the first war, I thought humanity was finished." "We were," replied Secretary General Park, Earth's civilian leader. "And then we reinvented ourselves." "Out of necessity." "All great changes come from necessity." Park looked at the star map on the wall, showing the Free Trade Alliance territories. "The coalition made us creative. They forced us to think differently. In a way, we should thank them." "I'm not feeling that generous," said with a slight smile. Captain Jinnah, the former medic who had commanded a Titan-class vessel during the war, now ran a training academy for allied species. She taught them Earth's tactics, the unconventional thinking that had won the war. "The key is to never accept limitations," she told a class of young officers from 3 different species. "If someone says you can't do something, find another way to do it. If they ban one type of weapon, invent a different type. Always adapt." The students listened carefully. They came from species that had never thought this way before, that had always followed military traditions and standard doctrines. Earth was teaching them to break those patterns. Engineer Bora Lee opened a design studio that specialized in dual-use technology. Everything they created had both civilian and military applications. Other companies the model. Soon, the entire human economy was built around this principle. "We'll never be vulnerable again," Bora explained in an interview. "Every ship we build, every tool we create can be used for defense if needed. That's just smart planning." The coalition species that remained hostile watched all this with growing concern. Earth wasn't just building a fleet. Earth was building an ideology, a way of thinking that spread to other species, that changed how they approached problems. Some coalition officials began to regret the First War. If they had left Earth alone, humanity might have remained isolated and weak. Instead, by attacking and then restricting them, the coalition had created something far more dangerous. They had created an enemy that didn't think like a military power, an enemy that turned every limitation into an advantage. Physicist Park made another breakthrough, this time in faster-than-light travel. Her new drive was more efficient than anything the coalition had. She shared the technology freely with all Alliance members. Within a year, Earth's ships were the fastest in the galaxy. Mining vessels, cargo haulers, research ships, all of them could now outrun traditional military vessels. "You're giving away our advantage," some officials complained. "No," replied, "I'm giving everyone the tools to be free. The coalition controlled species through superior technology. We're leveling the field." And the field did level. Species across the galaxy gained access to Earth's innovations. Many of them used these tools to demand independence from the coalition. The old order was crumbling. Captain Juan, who had commanded a Fortress-class vessel during the war, now worked as a merchant captain. He hauled cargo between Alliance worlds, but his ship was still armed, still capable of fighting. "Do you miss the military?" a crew member asked him during a long voyage. "We're still military," Juan replied. "We just don't call it that. Every civilian ship is a potential warship. Every merchant captain is a potential warrior. That's how humanity survives." It was true. Earth had blurred the line between civilian and military so completely that the distinction no longer mattered. Every ship, every crew, every citizen was part of the defense system. 12 years after the Treaty of Terra was signed, Admiral received his final promotion. He was now commander of the Merchant Defense Fleet, a title that still made him smile. Merchant Defense was such a perfect description of what they had built. He stood on the bridge of his flagship, the HMIV Liberty. It was the largest ship in humanity's fleet, officially classified as a stellar cartography platform. In reality, it was a carrier that could deploy hundreds of smaller vessels. Had designed it, of course. She never stopped innovating. "Admiral," his communications officer reported, "we're receiving a distress call from a colony in the Barnard system. Pirates are attacking." "Set course," ordered. "Maximum speed. Let's remind the galaxy that Earth protects its friends." The Liberty and her escort of 20 ships jumped to faster than light, racing to help. They arrived in less than an hour, scattering the pirates with a few warning shots from their mining equipment. The colony thanked them profusely. They were one of the smaller Alliance members, unable to afford a large defense fleet. But with Earth's help, they didn't need one. Humanity's civilian fleet provided protection. On Earth, in Admiral's old apartment in Tokyo, the retired Admiral sat with a group of former officers. They were all old now, veterans of both wars. They met once a month to share stories and remember. "Did you ever imagine this?" one of them asked. "That we'd go from defeated to the strongest power in the galaxy?" "No," admitted. "I thought we'd spend generations recovering. Instead, we spent one generation adapting." "The coalition created their own worst enemy," another said. "They did," agreed. "They tried to keep us weak by restricting our weapons. They should have restricted our creativity instead. But you can't ban innovation. You can't prohibit thinking." They raised their glasses in a quiet toast. To Earth, to humanity, to the species that refused to stay defeated. In the coalition's remaining territories, military academies now taught courses on human tactics. Officers studied the Battle of Eros, the Second War, the evolution of Earth's civilian fleet. They tried to learn to adapt to counter humanity's methods. But they were always one step behind, because Earth never stopped innovating, never stopped finding new ways to turn limitations into advantages. A coalition military scholar wrote a paper that became famous across the galaxy. Its title was simple: The Danger of Specific Restrictions. The conclusion was even simpler. When you prohibit someone from building warships, make sure you also prohibit everything that could become a warship. Otherwise, you've only limited their labels, not their capabilities. It was a lesson learned too late. 20 years after the treaty, a young girl named Jin sat in a classroom on Mars colony, learning about Earth's history. Her teacher explained the wars, the treaty, the innovation that followed. "Why did the aliens think they could control us?" Jin asked. "Because they were thinking traditionally," the teacher explained. "They thought that without warships, we couldn't fight. They didn't understand that humans don't need permission to be creative. So we built mining ships that could kill. We built tools that served many purposes," the teacher corrected gently. "Mining, hauling, processing, and yes, when necessary, fighting. We proved that the most dangerous weapon isn't a gun or a missile. It's a creative mind that refuses to accept limitations." Jin thought about that. Could we do it again if someone tried to limit us? "We won't need to," the teacher said with a smile, "because now everyone knows better than to try." On the bridge of the Liberty, Admiral looked out at the stars and thought about the future. Humanity had changed the galaxy in just 2 decades. They had gone from defeated to dominant, from restricted to free. And they had done it by following the treaty's rules, while breaking every assumption behind those rules. New design specifications from Engineer, his first officer, reported. "She's calling them scientific research probes." Pulled up the plans and laughed. The probes were actually long-range strike weapons, capable of operating independently across multiple star systems. But technically, legally, they were research equipment. "Never stops," he said with admiration. "Should we approve construction?" "Absolutely," replied. "You never know when we'll need to do some very aggressive research." The Liberty continued its patrol, protecting Alliance space, responding to threats, showing the galaxy that Earth's civilian fleet was always ready. Other ships joined them, vessels from allied species built using human designs and human thinking. The coalition had prohibited humanity from building warships. They had created something far worse, a species that no longer needed warships to dominate the stars, a species that turned every tool into a weapon, every limitation into an innovation, every restriction into an advantage. Humanity had learned the most important lesson. The greatest weapon isn't technology or firepower. It's the refusal to accept defeat. It's the creativity to find solutions where others see only problems. It's the human spirit that says, "You can prohibit what we build, but you can never prohibit what we think." And thinking, humanity had learned, was the most powerful weapon of all.